What's up guys, Cass here from GiveWave Studios, and on this one I'm going to show you how to turn all of the EVA foam pieces that you see here into this larger than life 18-inch tall Krumm candy bowl from Aaahh Monsters. And he even features light up LED eyes, guaranteed to be a hit at any Halloween party this season. And better yet, you can even scale the pattern up and make this giant 28-inch Krumm that has magnetically removable eyeballs and can even double as a carnival game. Watch this. Hey, and he poops it out. Let's get it. All right, so first thing we're going to do is make the eyeballs. So in order to do this, you need to cut out 16 of these pieces. It's going to be 4 pieces per half of a sphere. But one thing that I want you guys to take note of is if you did get the DIY kit, you'll notice how light and how dark this is. So this is a laser cut piece. In order for you guys to glue this properly, you're going to need to sand the edges down so it looks fuzzy like this piece. You're going to want to go from this charred edge to this smooth edge. It feels just as good on top as it does on the side, okay? Let's get into it. So all I'm going to do is heat these guys up, okay? And then I'm going to shape them and I'm going to glue them together edge to edge. I'll catch you guys for the next step. So we're going to go from a flat piece like this to something a little bit more curved like this. It kind of looks like an empty orange peel, okay, leftover orange peel. And then we're just going to glue our parts edge to edge to create our sphere. So just try to keep your edges as aligned as possible so you have nice clean seams that are not going to need too much cleanup afterwards. Okay, like so. Right. All of your seams should converge and touch each other at the middle there. Okay, and once you have your 2 halves, same concept applies. You're going to put glue on both these halves and you're going to stick them together. Now when you're applying contact cement, you don't need to put on a lot. I like to describe the amount being put on your edges as a 5-year-old wiping snot on their arm, as disgusting as that sounds. But that's what you want, just like that thin, shiny, mucusy spread on your edge. You don't want to glob on your contact cement. So do that, and you always want to let it dry. My rule of thumb is that if I put my finger on it and I can lift up the part significantly, it is not ready. If I can put my finger on it and it does not come off the table or it comes off and falls immediately, then it's ready. So let's give this some time to dry.
A few moments later.
So as you can see, it's coming up, but it's going right back down. Okay, so that's pretty good. And then we're going to go ahead and assemble our pieces. So try to get all of our seams to line up. Just kind of like jog it along. Make sure that we try to get it to be as flush as possible, the outside edges, so we have less sanding to do. That is if you even want to sand it. This is for the eyeball, so if you can find some type of spherical, object that is 2.5 inches in diameter, then you don't have to worry about even making these 2 spheres to begin with. You can just swap that out with something. But in case you don't and you want to try to make your own sphere, here you go. That's how it's done. So you're going to make 2 of these, and those are going to be the eyeballs. Let's go ahead and move on to the next step. Okay, and since we are on the theme of spherical things, let's work on the nose now. We're going to heat everything up just like we did for the eyeball, curve everything and assemble everything. And you guys will be able to see the steps through time lapse. Alright, so as you can see, with nothing but my fingers, I've managed to give this side panel a nice curve. So we went from this flat piece that you see here to something that's a bit more spherical and rounded. Now, if you are scaling this up, or if you're not too familiar with EVA foam work, do make sure that you transfer all of the information of your pattern onto your piece. That way, as you assemble these, that your tick marks will line up. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing with this piece and curve the rest of these. All right, so we go from this flat piece to more of this curved piece here. Okay, and again, make sure that you are working with your left and your right pieces. They're not labeled here, but again, follow your patterns. Okay, left and right. All right, we'll finish up with this. Parts have been heated and curved, and I've already put some contact cement on here, so I'm going to go ahead and start the process of gluing this first half, making good contact, making sure that I'm getting my edges as flush as possible to each other. You can always flip your pattern inside out to force the edges to stick to each other. Doesn't really matter what the inside looks like, you're never going to see that, so just try to get those edges onto each other. I'm going to give that a little bit and you can flip it right back out. So same thing with the other one. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and inside out this real quick also. Put some brush on these, and then I'm going to right side out this one. All right, we've got half of a nose, and then we're just going to glue the two halves together, and we'll have a full piece. All right, and there we go. We have our nose. Let's go ahead and move on to the next piece. All right, so let's move on to the body. So we're going to do this in halves. So these four pieces here are going to make up the top half, and these guys over here are going to make the bottom half. You can see a little butt here already. So same thing as we've been doing before, heating everything up, curving them, and then we're going to start assembling everything with the contact cement. I'll do a portion of it with you guys nice and slow, and then I'll fast forward through the rest of the steps. Okay, so we're going from a flat piece like this to a more curved piece like this. So that's what we're doing for these guys, and then moving on to this. You're gonna want to end up with something more like this. It should be like a little bridge that stands up by itself when you put it on a flat surface. All right. These parts are symmetrical, so it really doesn't matter if you curve front or back, but these guys are slightly different, so do make sure that you mark your left and your rights appropriately so that you assemble this the right way. And so we will put some contact cement on the curve here. Okay, so now that our pieces are dry enough that we can assemble, we'll start doing that. So just like we've done for everything else, just assembling, making sure that outer edges are as flush to each other as possible. It is definitely worth putting your tick marks on these pieces, especially if you plan on scaling this up any bigger than the 100% scale that it comes in, so that things fall in place as they should. All right, so again, we can do our reverse technique. So really squeeze in the seams together on our surface. All right. Bring that back. So now we have 1/4 of our body. We can go ahead and do the same thing with this one. I've already put glue on this. Just go ahead and start the process. Okay, now I've already put glue on the halves, so we can go ahead and connect our 2 halves together. Nice and slow. Take your time. Make sure that you're only gluing one side of it at a time. Separate the foam if you have to. Another thing that you can do is you can place a piece of foam in between. That way you don't accidentally glue anything that you don't want to as you're progressing through the steps. Make the foam do what you want it to do. So if you feel like curve and separate and twist and put it at awkward angles, but just make it comfortable for yourself to be able to line these up as flush as possible, so that you have to do the minimal amount of sanding if it comes to it. Okay. Almost there. And voila. Alright, now you can tell that the inside isn't really well attached all that much, but now that I've at least gotten the outside done, I can go back in, just kind of push these edges together to make sure that they have good connection all around. Alright, so we have our top half. Okay. So now let's work on the bottom half, and then we'll put everything together. So these 2 halves get curved just like we did for the top half, but these guys are a little different, these back pieces. If you refer to the pattern, you'll notice that there is a bevel here, indicated by the filled horizontal lines that you see here, and you can see it on the legend. And what this means is that we need to do a bevel cut here. It kind of starts here, gets a little bigger towards the cheeks, and then slims back down like so. But this needs to be done on the outside. Okay, so if this is my left side and I want this bevel to be on the outside, I'm just gonna flip it and cut on this side of the piece. So I can go ahead and re-put my marks on here if I wanted to, just to kind of give me a visual reference of what it is that I'm doing. It gets thicker there and then kind of slims back down. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my blade, okay, come in at an angle along the edge and just cut into the butt at that steep angle. Okay, and then fade that angle as I get back towards the straight. So if we take this out, okay, you can see if I put this straight, it starts straight, it kind of turns sideways, okay, and then finishes straight again. So you want to do that for both sides. So if I'm doing it for this cheek as well, again, I would turn this, put my Sharpie down so I have an idea of what I'm doing. All right, so with that out of the way, okay, so we're going from this flat piece, like you see here, to something more like this, right? Notice that it's curved like we did the first half, just all the way through, but, see what I did there? But the cheeks have a little bit more roundness to them. And all that was just me heating this area up a little bit more and just stretching and pushing and pulling with my thumb. So you almost wanted to, right, this is like the small of the back, so it comes down, so it goes down, up, and back down, okay? Making sure that your outer bevel obviously is facing the surface. So when something is beveled with the surface facing you and you can see the bevel on the outside, that's called an outer bevel. If it was the other way around, where it's beveled but you don't see the bevel from the surface, that's called an inner bevel, right? So we want outer bevels on both sides, heat them up, and then we're going to glue this together. So I'm gonna go ahead and match these two guys up and then place them. Okay, so you guys get a sense of how it is that I got that curve in the cheeks. Just gonna heat up just the part that you want to work on, which is that general area. Okay, and once you have that, it's really just a matter of using your fingers and sculpting the foam into what you want it to be. So I'm pushing from the underside to give it a nice mound on that side. Okay. You do want to have your other piece next to you for reference. You don't want one of your cheeks bigger than the other, or maybe you do, I don't know. But try to make them as symmetrical as possible. Okay. So once I have that bump on there, so it didn't take that much time, now I can kind of go ahead and sculpt kind of like the dip that comes in, the small of the back before. And so now I'm pushing down on one side and I'm pushing up from the other. That's gonna give me that S shape that I'm looking for. And same thing for when the cheeks dip back into the thigh. Do that there. And then I have the opposite. So I have a rise and a fall. Okay, rise and fall. Actually, this looks a little bit more rounded, so I'll fix this one. Keep in mind, whenever you reheat your foam, you tend to lose a little bit of your shape. So overextend your shapes a little bit when you do that. Make sure you get the right curvature back into the piece that you're working on. Okay, all right, more or less good. I like it. And now we're just gonna glue these two halves together. So I'm gonna do that along with you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and put some contact cement on this. All right, so we have glue on our parts now. So let's go ahead and assemble these now. You can start from whatever end you'd like. I'm gonna start from the bottom here. All right, so now that we're getting to the butt cheek, you want to kind of reverse direction. So now you're more so interested in getting the inside to line up flush. Okay. Until you get to the point where it starts tapering again. Right, and then you can revert back to your outside. All right. Now have a nice pair of clenched butt cheeks. I'm good with this. This will do. And now we're going to glue these side panels to each other and finish the rest of the build. So we'll catch you guys for the next step. Alright, so let's do this one together. Start either end. Just like that. Okay, on to the other side. Alright, so now it's time to put our two halves together. So I'm going to grab our butt section. Okay, so the sides here, we're just gonna kind of pinch the edges here, and I'm just gonna make a mark, just marking the center of where this is. So, okay, and mark the center. Okay, and then we're also going to mark the center of these side pieces here. So mark here, mark there, mark here, and a mark there. This would all make sense in a minute. So, right, so our parts are dry enough for us to start making our connection points here. So again, okay, curvy side goes towards the back here. So I'm going to start with my butt. Okay, making a connection. And I'm just going to pick a side. Right, I'm going to go left. You can go right if you like, but I'm just attaching one side at a time. Okay. And we just want to ensure that once we get to this halfway point on the other side, that it more or less corresponds to where the seam lines up. Okay, like so, and like so. Something like that. Okay. My other side is still intact to an extent. Okay. Go ahead and start going down. But more or less, this is the shape that we're going to end up with for the body. Okay. And then once we have this, you're going to start the fun part, which is going to be giving him a lip. The one point of reference that you do have is that your nose needs to be in the center of this panel, and it needs to touch this seam here. So with that position done, now you can kind of draw out where it is that you think you want your mouth to be. If you want a big old open smile, if you want a thin lip, etc., etc. So this is what I'm thinking, like a big wide open smile, or this in green. Now there's a lot of lines on here, but you can kind of tell that, you know, I could either have the big smiling version or one that's kind of like a little bit more weird. I'm thinking more something like this. I'm gonna go ahead and commit to this. So I've traced the lip here, but obviously I'm only going to cut the inner part here because this, the rest of the lip we're actually gonna put a 10mm piece of foam on top of to create an actual three-dimensional lip. So go ahead and cut your pieces out, and I'll catch you guys for the next step. All right, when our parts cut off, more or less kind of start seeing the shape a little bit. So obviously, because we only glued up to the halfway point of this strip, if I ended up doing the big old smile, then I would have cut all the way to the point where it was glued. But since I decided to go with something else, all I have to do is just put some contact cement in here and just glue these pieces shut. All right, so our side is glued. This is more or less what our body looks like. So we're gonna put this aside for a little bit and focus on the rest of the pieces. The arms are the larger pieces that you see here, and the legs are the shorter pieces that you see here. And so for the arms and the legs, so for the legs here, you'll notice that on the inside here, I have an inner bevel, okay? So, and again, these are left and rights, okay? So you're cutting them opposite from each other. So this is my left, this is my right. Down to that angle. All right, nice beveled cut. And then we're going to assemble these edge to edge, wrap them around. So I'm going to fast forward through that step, catch you guys for the next one. Okay, so for these, you're not so much curving them on top of anything rounded or anything. You're just kind of like rolling them up because they literally just connect to each other and they don't really need that much of a shape to them. So it's just making sure that they connect from one end to another, right? Basically. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue these guys together. Okay, so straightforward. Okay, not even as complex as anything else we've done so far. Edge to edge. Two legs are done. We can do the arms next. The only difference is the bevel cut on the arms is on the inside here. So this slice happens on the inside of this here. So I can start one end or the other. Okay. And then these guys are going to get assembled this way. Now, on your DIY kit, you will notice that there was an outline here. This is for you to cut out, just in case you're using your provided patterns to make the eyeball. This is just gonna make it sit inside of the kind of like the wrist area here a little bit nicer. But if you want to use any other type of ball, I don't know, like a ping pong ball or anything else that you might have that's a lot smoother than something that you assembled out of EVA, I wouldn't cut this out while it's flat. I would assemble the arm first, get a sense of where the curve falls, trace that, and then cut that out so that it kind of sits nice and flush, which is one of the reasons why I haven't taken it out on mines yet, is because I'm not going to end up using the EVA foam ball that I made for the eyeball. Instead, I'm going to make some 3D printed eyeballs that are going to be able to actually light up, and you'll see this later. But those 3D printed parts will be included in your DIY kit. Assembly, very straightforward. Okay, you can do long part first, you can do short part first, doesn't matter. All right, so we have all of our parts, and before we do any more gluing, I'm gonna go sand everything down nice and smooth and get our edges nice and sorted, and then we'll start figuring out placement on top of the main body piece. So now that we're in the chop shop, we're going to go ahead and sand all of these seams down with a stone bit attached to it. So it's gonna make it so that once we paint it, we don't see a lot of these lines there. Okay, we're gonna do that for the nose, the arms, so on and so forth. All right, let's get it. All right, so back from sanding, spit it out. We have all of our pieces. First thing we're gonna try to do this with are going to be the arms. So the likely position for this is going to be where this seam meets right here. Okay. Now, if you feel like you want to put this anywhere else, by all means. If you feel like it should be a little bit more up, so his hands are closer together, it's completely up to you, right? You can position this wherever you see fit. As long as you have the bevels on the inside, it should line up nice and flush with the body. So just trace where you want this to be on your prop. That way you can symmetrically plan out where they're going to be. Make sure you take a look at it, make sure it's nice and even and symmetrical. Okay, the legs we're going to do last. So now we can actually move on to making our hands. We're just going to glue the hand to the half of the arm right there. Okay. But before we do that, we want to heat it up. Okay. And when it's heated, we're going to want to form the hand into kind of like a ball shape, as if it's holding the eyeball. So curve all of your fingers. Make sure you put a nice big dip in the palm. Right? And curve everything frontwards, so it makes it look like he is gripping onto something. Right? So we're going to go from a flat piece like this to something a little bit more like this. Now, if you bought the DIY kit, you will be getting 3D printed eyeballs along with it, so you can actually use this to form your hands a little bit and get a bit more accurate feel for how much you need to curve the fingers. If you made your own ball, you can do a similar thing with your EVA ball. Same thing, right? It fits in the palm of his hand. And once you're happy with your curve, you're gonna go ahead and glue it to that side of the arm. Now remember what we had said about this part here, okay, being left out. So as you can see, if I try to put the ball in there, it just doesn't look natural because there's no curve there. So I can go ahead with my X-Acto knife and take out that curve. As I mentioned earlier, if you are using a different ball and you got the patterns, for example, right, wait till you have your piece in place, because your circle cutout might differ. This isn't a cut that's going to be seen, really, so you can go ahead and do this with a pair of scissors. Alright, and then with the one that you cut out, make sure that you use it on the opposite side, so you're cutting out the same shape on both ends. Alright, this is prep. I'm going to go ahead and glue my hands, and I will catch you guys for the next step. Alright, so our glue is good enough. I'm just going to go ahead and add our hand. As usual, focus on the outer seam lines to make sure those are as clean as possible. Okay. Have a hand. We'll go ahead and drop the ball in there, and eventually we'll glue the fingers onto the ball itself. So now that we have that, we can go back onto our body. Let's just do like a final check, making sure that things are exactly where we want them to be. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put some glue on here. And before we start gluing anything else, let's just make sure to heat seal all of our parts. Okay. And we can go ahead and start putting arms and noses and stuff and things. All right, so that's one arm in. Okay, I'm gonna take my time with the other one with you guys, but I actually plan on putting LEDs in this, so I'm going to just make like a small hole on the inside here so that I can run some wires so I can light up the eyes. I ended up installing the first one without doing this. It shouldn't be too bad. I should still be able to reach inside. Okay, all right, pulls in there. Let's install the other arm before this dries off on me. So I'm gonna go start at the bottom here. Okay, just kind of pick a side and wrap around, trying to make sure that the top of the arm lands where it's supposed to. so, and like so. All right, here we go. We're starting to look like something. Okay. And now let's do the nose. Okay, so don't be afraid to remeasure once you start installing things, because that can change positionings and perspectives just a little bit. All right, so that. Try and line this up as straight as possible. Okay, just follow our initial path. We had it earlier. There we go. Okay. And at this point, you would think that all that's left for us to do are the legs. That's actually the last thing that we're gonna do. We wanna make sure that we have everything on here first that is going to shift the weight one way or another. And that includes these lips. So what I've done is cut some strips of 10 millimeter EVA foam, smooth on both sides. So I'll grab 2 of these. I'm gonna try and figure out the exact length that I need for this. So I'm just gonna heat up this piece real quick. Alright. Making sure we can get a nice curve out of this, so while the foam is relaxed, just kind of start giving it that shape. Now his lips are pretty crusty, so what I'm gonna end up doing is grabbing the Dremel and making some nicks and bruises and gashes in here, and rounding off the edges here to just soften the edges of the lip a little bit, so it looks a little bit more natural. So yeah, on to the next step.
A few minutes later.
So after putting in a good amount of work, we're gonna go from a flat rectangular piece like this to something a little bit more chewed up, like this. So make it longer than you need to, and you can just connect it when it loops around. I'm gonna do mine starting at this corner here, because what I'm gonna do is do a little bit more carving to get some detail of the lip into there. And so I know that because that's gonna overlap with the seam, that's gonna be able to hide it as well. So it looks a lot nicer. So I'm just gonna go ahead and glue that onto my body. All right, so, and as this fully comes around, I can mark that spot and cut that out. And then be sure to also put some glue on the connecting ends, not just the bottom of this part here. So, moments of connection. Like so, surface to surface. And we've got a lip. All right, there's our lip. It's very subtle, the thing that I was doing, so I don't know if it's gonna pick up until I actually put some paint down, but you can kind of see that lower lip thing that I was talking about doing right here. Okay, so now that most of our weight is on our body, we can start assembling our legs. Okay, the outside of the leg is the long part, the inside is the short part. So I would say about 3/4 to a 1/2 inch from the back of the heel. You should glue it to the base of the foot. At this point, you can also drop in some like heavy pieces of metal or something like that
to kind of like help it stand up, and then attach the legs with those things in there. That way it's a little bit bottom heavy, and so less likely to fall. Let's go ahead and glue these guys in place. All right, so we have feet, and now comes the balancing game. You're gonna grab some fairly sticky tape, and you're going to attempt to start finding where it is that your foot should sit. Everyone's stuff going to come out different. It's going to depend on what density foam you used, or what thickness of foam you used, etc., etc. All right, so I found a decent position that works right now. And also, as you can see, I've stuffed a bunch of candy inside of here because, again, you want to position the legs as close as possible to what the general weight is going to be so that is distributed evenly. So that's what it looks like more or less. I'm going to go ahead and remove my goodies. Okay, and as you can see, what ended up working is the legs slightly offset from each other. So again, this is going to be a very custom process for everyone. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. They don't necessarily have to be aligned with each other. Sometimes turning the feet inwards on each other might be the situation, or maybe outwards. Just try different things until you get a good point of balance. Okay. So once you've traced everything, just do one final sanity check with a couple of pieces of tape and try to tape your leg to what we think is this final position. So it's not standing up by itself, but again, when I did this, I did it with the weight of candy inside of it. All right, now I'm looking good, okay? So since I already have tape on here, let's get that out, buddy. I'm just going to redraw where this is supposed to sit to make sure that I absolutely tape it in the right position. Nothing more, nothing less. All right, catch you guys for the next step. It is done. He stands. I can turn him around. All right. As long as he has a certain amount of candy inside of him, he shouldn't topple over. Okay, so we are about ready for paint. I'm gonna go plasti dip this. All right, and we are out of the paint booth. Now he does look a little bit well done. The reason I am stopping mid paint is to tell you guys that after you've plasti dipped, you can usually tell like if you have any dips or irregularities, and you can fix a lot of that stuff with quick seal or foam clay. Okay, and you can even sculpt this out a little bit more. He does tend to be a little bit lumpy, so you could potentially grab your foam clay and just start building up lumps, kind of like, you know, the thighs at the bottom here, so it's not just like skinny legs. Similar to this, you can build up the arms a little bit so they kind of like chub up on top of here. You can mess around with the nose. There's a lot of stuff that you can do before proceeding to the next coat of paint while you still have the plasti dip down. But again, if you guys want to take it the next step, you're more than welcome to. All right, and here is our little guy. Well, not little anymore, but our big guy painted right now. I'm gonna grab some of this teal paint. I'm gonna go ahead and paint the lips real quick. All right, so now we have a lip, and I really like the color of the lip. What I really don't like is the color of his body. He looks sickly. He has like this green tone to him, which is not at all what I thought satin khaki was going to look like. But I'm gonna go ahead and just change the color up and paint it with some house paint that I mixed up. So we're gonna go from this to this. All right, that is much better. Okay. I have grabbed some black PLA filament, and I've just kind of like heat them up to kind of make them uneven. So I'm just gonna like stick them into here to do the armpits. I have grabbed some fairy lights that I've separated in 2 equal parts, and I'm going to feed into the arms so that I can light up the eyes. Stuff it into the eye. And as long as the battery just hangs on the inside, right, I'll be able to turn the eyes on and off. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick these guys into the armpits, draw some like stubs on the body, and then I'll show you guys how to add some like extra detail like teeth on the inside here. So I'm gonna fast forward through those steps and catch you guys for the next ones. All right, and our guy is now ready. He has his armpit hair, he has his body hair. We did just a few details on the lips, some stuff on the nose, a little bit of dots. All we gotta do is just fill our guy with our snacks of choice. And there we go. And before we wrap that up, what I'm going to do is give him some teeth. So I've grabbed a sheet of paper and I just kind of put it on the inside of the mouth. They kind of dip behind the lip and show up on either side here. Very similar to my image reference that I was working off of. And I'm going to use that to transfer onto my phone. Okay, and if I bring this back up, you'll see that if I glue it on the inside there, I'm gonna get exactly that look that I want. But all right, so that concludes how we make our Krumm candy bowl, complete with LED light up eyeballs. And of course you can put whatever candy you wish to put in there. I hope you guys learned something from this one. Hope this tutorial was useful. Hope you guys have fun making it. It's a super neat idea for Halloween parties, or even just kind of like as a general decoration. But yeah, if you guys have any questions or concerns, feel free to leave them in the comment section. I try to get back to those as often as possible. But this has been Cass from GiveWave Studios, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.